Okay, this second city profile will be on London. And the reason that I've chosen London to do this is because it combines a number of the different issues that we've been talking about throughout this lecture series. So issues about scale, about change over time, about delivery of different benefits to a variety of different people, and of course about the way in which things are either strategically or locally supported, and of course who benefits from these and who funds these things. So again, if you think about these key variables that GI is really looking about, we can think about London in terms of the scale of its GI. Between 48 and 49% of the city cover is actually green or blue infrastructure, and that doesn't include the green belt, which is external to that. They vary in size from very small pocket parklets to the big royal parks, such as Hyde Park. They transcend different local authority boundaries, so there's discussions there about who actually manages these parks. Is it the local authority, so be it Lambeth Council? Is it the Greater London Authority? Is it the Royal Park? Or is it other large landowners, such as the people who own sort of half of the West End? There's also issues then about what kind of landscape people are trying to provide. Is it a very Victorian and aesthetic quality led landscape, or is it about delivering something that people want right now? So London is a very interesting place just in terms of its spatial format and spatial distribution of GI, but it's also interesting in terms of how the ideas about the economy, about social cultural understandings of space, and about the politics of place are played out in London. So there are constant discussions about who has the rights to use space, who should be using them, and who's going to pay for them. So you may have seen last year in the papers that there were discussions about how new developments were having play areas or green infrastructure integrated into developments, but people in social housing were being excluded from it. And there was a lot of discussion there about whether that was equitable. More contemporary is the fact that we are currently having a conversation about whether we should close parks in the UK due to the coronavirus, and this is because people seem to be unwilling to social distance in parks and are still using them as if there was nothing wrong. So the way in which we develop, the way in which we manage, the way in which we think about parks is very much dependent on a lot of who we are, where we're from, and how we do and how we actually think about parks. And London is a great example of this. More recently, we started to see issues of climate change, access, and water management come through in London, particularly through the Greater London Authority and the London Plan, which is looking at the way in which the environment has a critical role to play in supporting livability, but also in supporting economic viability of the city. So there's a lot of discussions here about how this overarching strategy can be brought down and applied in each of the boroughs, and it's not necessarily as simple as saying, oh yeah, this is how we do it in each location, because there has to be some strategic thinking around air pollution, air quality, around transport, around sustainable drainage systems, which might otherwise be missed off. So one of the things when we discuss London is the fact that it is very variable, and we have to understand why those things vary. And if we just take a few examples of this from South London, so picture in the top left there is from just outside the Greater London Authority area on the South Bank, and it's a place where there's lots of office development, lots of high quality GI, lots of high quality GI because it actually helps to increase the rents and the value of the office space around there. It's near Tower Bridge, so there's lots of tourists as well, and the GI acts as a meeting place, a place to actually spend time, a place to actually gain benefits from the cooling of the area in the summer, but also a place to sit down and have your lunch. We can contrast that to the middle picture in the top, which is next to one of the housing estates in Brixton, which we talked about in one of the previous lectures. And this might not look like much, but these new trees and these sort of benches are deemed as a way of softening the entrance into this estate, which is deemed to be very, very sort of brutalist and very exclusionary, and therefore using GI as a way of making things more engaging and welcoming to people, which for a lot of areas of social housing is much needed, because they don't want to have that stigma of being a place of exclusion. Next to that is the Brixton Orchard, a location just off the main road to Brixton Hill, an area of land which has been largely left isolated and left blank for a number of years, and has been repurposed by the Business Improvement District, the BID, to actually be a community space that people have ownership over. And again, it's starting to look at ways in which GI can be used to facilitate community engagement with the space and actually be used to promote ownership and stewardship over that location. And this has been seen as well in the South Bank, so around Southwark and around London Bridge, with the two pits in the bottom left and bottom middle, which are part of the Better Bankside area of using sustainable drainage and rain garden to actually try and improve the street scene, but also to limit some of the problems with flooding on streets. And the picture in the middle, so the metal box garden, is just a way of saying that even in a highly urbanised areas, you can use things which are deemed to be very grey, so in this case a skip, to actually provide a little garden. And again, it's not very healthy at the moment. This was taken in February, March of a couple of years ago, so in the summer it will prosper. And the picture in the bottom right is interesting because it's on one of the buildings around Elephant and Castle, and it's selling this grand view that the area can be repurposed as a green and livable place with lots of green walls and green roofs. So in this case, GI is being used as a selling point, as an economic marketing tool. And a lot of these things may not happen, but that's the way it's been proposed. And it's near the former Haygate estate, which has been repurposed and redeveloped, and a lot of the GI that was there has been taken away. So if we compare these quite small and localised areas to some of the bigger things, so around Lambeth and particularly around the city, the central area of London, there's a lot of green spaces, and they're managed by local authorities or private landlords, and in many cases they are actually there to try and moderate some of the more some forms of activity. So in the top left there, no games permitted. So this is a housing development with quite high-end housing. So they don't want actually kids playing on there. So is it an equitable and inclusionary space, or is it for a select people, a select part of the society? In the top right, professional dog walkers, so have to be licensed and have to actually be able to walk there and make money from the place. And then on the bottom is something slightly different, where you've got the Olympic Park development and a number of different things happening all at once. So the big tourist attractions of the London Stadium or the Middle Orbit. There's the new housing that was repurposed from the accommodation for the games, that's now private sector, as well as this very, very open area of grassland, which actually there are quite a number of across the site. And of course the Lee Valley sort of new wetland area where it floods on purpose during the winter. So GI in London has been used in a number of different ways to do quite big things. There's this network of parks in the top middle picture, to these grandiose visible international projects like the Olympic Park, to more localised parks and management. And a lot of the issues around parks and GI in London is about accessibility, connectivity and equitability. So do all parks have the same functions or amenities? Are they all managed in the same way? And if not, why not? So are parks in more affluent areas being managed in a more affluent manner to give people more opportunities to engage with them, compared to places that are of low social income? And if this is the case, then how can we try and to equalise that, to make sure that everybody benefits from GI in a similar way? So in London, we have to think about scale, we have to think about location, we have to think about money and who actually benefits from these things. And it's not a straightforward answer, given the governance structure of the area, with the GLAs, the Greater London Authority, having an overarching strategic view, but then each of the different local boroughs having an administrative and a financing role, and then of course the City of London sits slightly outside of that. But of course you also have very large landowners, be it the Royal Family, be it the Duke of Westminster, who also play a key role in delivering and managing GI. So lots to think about in London, and a lot of different variation in terms of what GI can be delivered. Okay, see you all soon, and I hope you found this useful.